3 pounds a plant, and we have 1,660 plants per acre. That makes 4,980 pounds per acre divided by 2,000. That makes 2.49 tons per acre. Wow, that sounds high. That's 3 pounds a plant? Wow.
2.49. Well, that's...
You know, I'm going to say 2.5 then is really my more desired. Because I know that, well, for example, this year we came in well under 2.4 tons per acre. I know that. We would have a lot more grapes if we didn't. Okay, let's say 2.5 pounds per plant times 1,660 is 4,150. That's closer. Okay. Divided by 2,000, so it's just over 2 tons. 2.075 tons per acre. That's at 2.5 pounds per plant. All right, now 1 ton will produce approximately 160 gallons of wine. So that would be 332 gallons of wine on that acre. Divided by 1,660 plants means 0.2 gallons per plant.
Per plant.
Yeah. 0.2.
Man, that's a lot.
So.
Oh, wait a minute. 0.2 gallons.
0.2 gallons.
Okay, so that's. I'm thinking in liters. So that's.
Well,
4
let's see.
liters.
Okay, a case of wine is 2.1. No, what is it? 2.3775 is a case of wine, gallons. So that's times 0.2. 475. Now I'm lost. 0.475. Gallons. 0.475 of a case. Okay. 12 times 0.475 is 5.7 bottles.
Per plant?
Yeah. At 2.5 pounds of grapes per plant.
Man, so that seems like a lot. That seems like a lot.
That does actually.
Yeah.
It's too much. I screwed up. We said 0.2
2 gallons per plant.
Gallons per plant.
Okay. And so that's 0.2 of a gallon.
You know, it's a lot easier to do if I do it in metrics.
Yeah.
I did the conversion. You know, well, just a lot of stuff, spending a lot of time in, and horsing around with vineyards. And, you know, at the same time, I heard in about 1987 about the Drouin family from Burgundy buying 120 acres in the Dundee Hills, where...
And you were still in France?
I was still in France, but I grew up, I grew up in Clackamas County. My grandparents had farms in Yamhill County. I used to travel to McMinnville as a kid every weekend to see Grandma, and so all of a sudden I'm hearing about this family from Burgundy buying land in I felt like my own home backyard. And so a little light went off, and I said, if they're doing this, we need to find an old farm, because it would be a good investment. We could grow some Pinot Noir. This is serious. If these people, knowing what they know, generations of wine growing in Burgundy, are buying land all the way out in Yamhill County, something's going on.
Yeah.
So I came back on a home leave, I think it was in 87, and I kind of put the word out through friends of my mother's who live out here, that I'd be interested in finding a place that'd be appropriate for grapes. Didn't hear anything in 87, didn't hear anything in 88, and then in 89 I was back at home meaning visiting my family here in West Lynn. And this good old boy had called and said, hey, if Doug is still interested in a farm, there's a pretty interesting place that's on the market now out on Lewis Rogers Lane. You should look at it. So I came out here and saw it, and bingo, just did the deal before in a matter of days.
Wow.
And
there was no vines out here. It
wasn't a vine on the spot. Yeah, no, it was. There was hazelnuts in the south block over there, south of the house, and there was pasture out east here in the vineyard we're looking at, and no vines. There was an old fruit orchard up on the hill that wasn't very productive and stuff like that. But it was the right elevation, and it was a good location, et cetera, et cetera. So you just bought it. And contacted Joel Myers, who you may have come across. He's a real experienced, even at a young age, grape grower and a vineyard manager, with the business of planting vineyards and managing vineyards. And I said, Joel, I want to plant this place. And he came out, looked at it, and he started ordering plants and started planting. And that was in, the first vines went in the ground in the spring of 1990. And then we planted, that was about 10.2 acres, and then we planted another, I think 5 or so acres in 1992.
Are you still a journalist then?
Yeah, I left CBS in 1992. My last contract was up in August or September of 1992. And by that point, the other thing that was going on was I just felt that the work that I had signed on to do 18 years previously I wasn't really doing anymore. The network wasn't doing the kind of journalism that suited me. I didn't suit what they were doing, and so we just parted company.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is it. We're gonna try this.
All right.
And I wrestled a bit with whether to leave journalism altogether. I had a couple offers from other networks, and but they all were kind of going in the same direction and wanted me to do the same things, and it was not very fulfilling. And besides that, I was getting older. It was getting to be dangerous, more dangerous than it had been, and I'm just going like, no, is this what I want to be doing when I'm 50?
Yeah.
And the answer was really not.
So what was the decision to go organic and biodynamic?
Well, biodynamics came along much later. Organics was largely because of having grown up here, my family's house was very close to the river.
Willamette? Uh-huh.
Yeah, in West Lynn. And so as a kid, me and my friends were always down. We were river rats. We just, we building rafts, we had boats, we were fishing, swimming, and so I saw firsthand, what, it was a very polluted river. Still is, really, but it was even more polluted then. And I just reckoned as an adult then, if I'm going to be farming in this watershed, I don't want to contribute to that if I don't have to.
Yeah.
And so talking with Joel and others, they kind of gave me the opinion that, you might be able to get away with doing this organically. And so we said, well, we'll give it a try. And this is Gamay.
Hi, Gamay.
We'll give it a try. And so we did. And never looked back.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between like organic and sustainable yield and traditional?
Well, sustainable is a word that gets thrown around a lot. Doesn't really have.
So does organic.
Doesn't really have any meaning. Organic has a very specific set of standards and products that are specified by the federal government. And if you put, we now put biodynamic on the label, but it says here certified organic. In order to make that claim on a label of a bottle of wine, you have to be certified by a third party who studies and evaluates your farming against the list of criteria, which are very specific, and they are nationwide. There's no fluctuation in that. So people can say what they want. You can't stop people from a tasting room saying, oh yeah, this is organic wine, But if you put it on a label, you you have to pass a very high test of compliance with all of these various standards.
Okay, following a grape, through from flowering to the bottle, like what's the difference between that organic grape, and its cousin, we'll say traditional?
Ooh, I can't. There are a lot of differences, but I'll just hit the high points.
Okay.
Let's say.
Yeah. The top 10.
The top 10. Chances are, and this is not a specific requirement, but chances are, in an organic vineyard, you don't have as many grapes as you do in a conventional vineyard. Because you prune your grapevines back, because you know that there is significantly greater risk of rot if you have too large a crop, if your vines are carrying too big a crop load. So chances are you have a lower yield.
Because the energy of the plant, or why is that?
Because you've just got more grape out there to begin to suffer from disease. For a start.
Just mass.
Yeah, just in terms of volume. So if you have pruned that way, then you have fewer grapes. You will probably have, as that grape develops, somewhat thicker skins, which right away, your first line of defense against disease in a grape is the skin, just like skin is for us. And so thicker skins are good. It's more difficult for disease spores to penetrate and to stick and to spread. In an organic grape, you will not find residue of a vast array of herbicides, insecticides, mildicides, or other pesticides. You will most likely only find residue of sulfur. Possibly copper, although we don't use it, but some that you could in a special circumstance. You may also find...
The copper's for the leaves?
No, the copper is sometimes used in a late season spray for bunch rot.
Oh, okay.
But the principle being the same, to thicken the skins. It actually thickens the skins of the grapes. Yeah, but we've used it years ago, but gotten away from it because it's very toxic, heavy metal, and it accumulates in the soil. It's not healthy for living things, and Yeah. So we don't use it. We could, but we don't. You may also find on that organic grape residue from some other things. There are some new biofungicides that are. I'm not versed enough to be able to tell you what they are. They're actually a living organism, if you will. You may find residue of whey, for example. There are organic farmers that spray whey for disease control, meaning just the byproduct of cheese making, which is also a living organism, right? Yeah. You're putting on the grape leaves and on the green tissue a life form. It's close to a fungi, if you will, that is believed to have very beneficial effects in reducing or combating disease. Yeah. So, but that's about all you're going to find on an organic grape. That's about it. I mean, no herbicide, no insecticide, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
And in a conventional grape, that's not true. You may find a lot of other things.
Yeah. Now, what about biodynamic? Now, what's the difference between biodynamic and organic?
And organic. Well, biodynamic, too, has a specific set of standards that, again, if you put on a label, you must meet the criteria, as we do. This wine is a biodynamic wine, and what that means is that the grapes are certified in the vineyard biodynamically, to be biodynamically grown.
By whom?
By the International Demeter Association, Demeter, or some people say Demeter. I haven't figured out how we're supposed to pronounce it. But it is an international body that certifies biodynamic products around the world. And so your grapes have to meet their standard, the way you grow them, and your winery, your processing facility has to be a certified processor. And in order to put on the label that this is a biodynamic wine, We cannot use any added yeasts. We cannot add sugar. We cannot add acid. We cannot add enzymes. We cannot add a lot of things that are various manipulations of the winemaking process. So that wine is really about the most basic, pure form of fermented wine one could make, that I know of, at least. Apart from, I don't know how you would make it any more unmanipulated than that. I really don't.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about that a lot. The other wine is, and both organic and biodynamic have this distinction. There's organic wine, there's a biodynamic wine. There's a made with organically grown grapes wine, and there's a made with biodynamic grapes wine. The other wine is made with biodynamic grapes. What that means is the vineyard, our vineyard, certified biodynamic, grapes come in, but in the winery, I had to manipulate that wine, and indeed in this
Manipulate
year,
it like with additional yeast or something, or
we never use yeast here.
Okay.
All of it is natural fermentation. But that particular wine in 2006, I had to add tartaric acid to, because the pH was so high.
Uh-huh.
So I brought the pH down, and that manipulation means I cannot call it a biodynamic wine.
Okay.
And obviously, with these certifications, I have to have a paper trail for everything that I do, basically, in making the wine and in growing the grapes. Everything we spray is a matter of record. Everything we do in the winery, every substance we add or take away from the wine, it's all on paper and is available for inspection. And it is inspected at least once a year, and sometimes more.
And so you've got a logbook or something that you have to, you know,
Many.
like we did sulfur today at
Yep.
9:30 in the morning, or
Yep.
6:30,
Exactly.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's people can throw around organic, or they can throw around biodynamic, but it's real important. I just was in San Francisco, and this was for a trade event, biodynamic wine tasting, and it became clear people didn't understand this. That if you see it on the label, it's very hard to phony it up.
Uh-huh.
You've really got to pass the test, because that is a federally approved label,
Yeah.
and the federal government approves every word on it, including the use of the word biodynamic. And they make me, and anybody who does this stuff, whether organic or biodynamic, they make me apply for label approval with every new label. Now, most wineries don't have to do that. I don't need to
With each vintage, you mean, or
Yeah, with every new wine.
And so you bring on like you bring on a Gamay or
Yeah.
Noir, and like that's new for you. Then you've got to certify that with, not certified, but like get the federal government to approve it.
Yeah, we make Gamay Noir every year.
Uh-huh.
And so this label is the same as last year's label. The only difference is the date. It's not 2005, it's 2006,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
We still have to send both front and back labels to the federal government for them to approve before we run it to the printers for them to print.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Why?
Well, because I believe deeply in the importance of both organic and biodynamic farming.
Uh-huh.
And I believe that if I'm going to pursue that, then I need to tell people that if they want to know what we do.
Yeah.
It's complete transparency. I mean, you could take that bottle and you could go to the biodynamic standard, or this is both biodynamic and organic standard. Okay, you can look at either set of criteria, and it will tell you all the things that we've done.
Uh-huh.
And all the things we haven't done, if you care to do that research. It's completely transparent. So, it's a food product. And I would like a world in which all of our food was that transparent.
Yeah.
But it's not. But mine is.
Yeah.
It's as transparent as I can make it. So
So what about, what is it that makes, like, Oregon wine and the wine, the fruit that you grow here and the wine that you make here different than, say, in France or in Napa?
Well, the fact that it's grown here.
And what is it? What is it about here that makes it so different than, say, even New Zealand?
There's no place else in the world like this place right here.
Okay, what are we looking at? Are we looking at soil? Or are we looking at
All of it.
Weather? We're looking at
All of it. All of those factors that go into what happens in the vineyard here. All of that. The hawk that's sitting down in the Douglas fir tree down there that's feeding off of the gophers that are moving soil around from this part of the vineyard to that part of the vineyard, that the earthworms that are processing out the microorganisms that are breaking down last year's prunings as we sit here, all of that makes this a completely unique place, like any place, but this is a place where we grow grapes, and the beauty, really the beauty and the fascination of growing grapes, and specifically Pinot Noir, is it will reflect everything about it. If you listen carefully enough, if you taste it carefully enough, and you come to know it well enough, you can find all of that in that wine. It's a completely clear expression of what's going on here.
And you say Pinot Noir is the one that holds all of that information the best.
It does, and I'm convinced of that. I grow these two other varieties, Chardonnay and Gamay, and make wine from them. But I can tell you, if you taste, I don't have a lot of barrels of Gamay right now at the moment, but if I had a rack full of 20 barrels of Gamay, and you taste one to the next, you'll find very few differences between them, even though they're different fermentations, and different barrels and all that. But if you go through a rack of Pinot Noir, same number, you will find no two barrels alike, even though they may be identical barrels from the same cooper, bought in the same year, from the same forest in France.
Harvested from the same block, from the same area.
From the same fermenter. They will not be the same.
I've tasted the differences, like, from one block, with to the next block with only a little road in between. I've tasted the difference between that, but I guess I didn't think about even like the barrel from barrel to barrel, like the differences like in the wood and
they grow well, and it isn't just the barrel. They grow, or they age. The French say they grow. They age in the barrel differently. They evolve, and that's what they mean by grow. They grow, age into that in different ways, and therefore become different wines because of all these various aspects that they're reflecting. Gamay is not that way, even though it looks the same. It's a red grape, it grows right here side by side, but it's like everything's the same. Pinot Noir, everything's different.
That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why people call it the heartbreak grape. That's why people just, why guys like me consider it a lifelong pursuit. I don't think, I mean, I hope I have a long time yet, but I don't think I won't do anything else in my life but study and work with this grape.
So what does a winemaker bring to the grape? Especially to Pinot Noir?
Well, the hand of man. This is part of why I think biodynamics is really an interesting and worthwhile way to pursue this, is because it is considered in the biodynamic worldview the hand of man, the role of the farmer is not out or away from the entity, the farm entity. No, the farmer, his wife, his family, their dogs, are all part of this whole. It is super subjective. There's no objectivity there. You don't say, okay, I have this farm and I step back and I go, I can do this, and I'm outside of this, and I objectively assess. No, my intervention is all a part of what goes on in that whole. So I would be fooling you if I said that the winemaker didn't bring something to the party. No, my role is integral throughout. And how? Well,
integral even with the farmer's role, because are you saying like the farmer is the one that tends the vines, and Or is the winemaker part of that farmer?
No, see, I don't distinguish between the
Okay.
winemaker and the farmer.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, I grow the grapes and I make the wine in this little world of our farm.
Yeah.
And I don't think in the ideal world, I don't think there is a distinction between the farmer and the winemaker. That's a false disconnect.
Okay.
You know, it's not necessary, and it isn't practiced that way in wide parts of the world. You know, principally France, which is sort of our model, but Italy and elsewhere. That's why in French there is no word for winemaker. The word is wine grower, vigneron. Okay, you grow your grapes and make your wine on your farm or in your, in your cellar, but you grow those grapes.
Yeah.
And that's what you work with. That is the tradition, and I believe it's a good one because, for example, we were talking about yields earlier, right? I know, why did I spend $13,000 to prune 30 to 33% of my grapes and throw them on the ground this year? If I were just a grower, okay, and not interested in the making of the wine, I would see that as lost revenue. I'm throwing money away, literally, on the ground. But I'm also the winemaker, and I know that once we get those grapes in, and what goes into the barrel, I will benefit as winemaker, and the farm will benefit from the product greatly by reducing the size of that crop. So it's not easy to throw grapes on the ground.
Yeah, I bet.
But if you can see as the winemaker that there's a payoff here, it makes it a lot easier, and you do it.
Yeah. I'm looking also like for some unusual or interesting wine term or wine making terms. Maybe like some like maybe list off some of the tools that you use in making wine.
Well, the one that threw my insurance company was my Torpedo.
Torpedo?
Yeah.
Oh no! What's a torpedo?
It really is like, okay, give us a list of your equipment. I got a Torpedo. I go, what the heck? You expect us to insure a Torpedo?
Is it live?
All it is it's a tall stainless steel screen that is it's got a handle on one end and a pointed end on the other, and you use it to shove down into a fermenter so that on the inside of the screen it's all closed. You have nothing but juice.
Oh, okay.
Or wine, so you don't have any seeds and skins and stuff to come into your hose, and you put your hose down in there and you can pump pure juice. You're not pumping a bunch of stuff that's going to gum up your pump. See, so that's all it is. It's just a really simple piece of stainless steel screen.
Yeah.
But we call it a Torpedo. I mean, it's commonly known as a Torpedo in the wine business. But like I say, it threw my insurer.
I bet. What other kind of things have thrown what other kind of things does your insurance agent ask you about?
Wonder about. Oh gosh, there really hasn't been anything else. That was the main one. Oh, Gamay. What is it, Gamay? It's kind of cold in here. Yeah. She's talking to us now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. You funny dog. Oh, geez. I don't know. What do we use? Pallets, pallet jacks, pumps, hoses, clamps, fittings, funnels, carboys.
Carboys. What's a carboy?
Carboy's a big glass jug that you
To hold.
For wine. You put wine in it, or lees, overage. Just it's a container. Tanks. We've got corkers and fillers and stuff like that.
Filler. What's a filler?
Filler is what you fill a bottle with.
Oh, okay.
We have 2 6-spout fillers. We line up opposite each other on 2 trays, and we put somebody in a stool in between, and we just fill, so that we can bottle a lot. We bottle like maybe 200, on a good day, 250 cases a day, something like that. So,
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, how many cases do you do in a year? Or
We
like
just
last year?
this year we did 3,770, and last year we did 4,000, almost 4,300, which was too much. Too much. I don't want to do that again. It's, as you might probably guess, it's the being big, making more wine is not my goal in life. I want to just make better, more wonderful wine every chance I can.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well,
Sadly, I only get one chance a year.
Yeah. It's kind of a long process during the year, and you have like all those little incremental steps.
Yes, and that's the role of the winemaker.
Tell me
All of
about
those
that.
little incremental steps
Like
are decisions, that I make.
Like what kind of decision?
How many nodes are we going to leave on the vine at pruning in January? On each vine?
Uh-huh.
9, 8, 11. How many nodes? Then, once the vine starts to grow.
And then the nodes, is like what goes into that particular decision making process about the nodes?
Well, it will determine to a large extent how much fruit you carry on each vine.
Okay. The more nodes, the more fruit.
Right, because almost every node will produce 3 shoots. Okay, a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary shoot. But the next decision is, are you going to leave all 3 shoots from each node? No, that's you're farming 3 grapevines rather than 1 for every 1 grapevine. So, are you going to take off the tertiary? Are you going to take off the secondary and leave only the primary? Yes. I mean, those are I generally always do. You want to go out? Okay. Play, don't you? Okay, go.
That was so nice.
She's a character.
Oh, this dog.
She's a character. I had her dad for 15 years, and she's 12, going on 13 now, so.
Wow.
Yeah. So
You were talking about nodes, and
Yeah.
and then like even the nodes is was it last year or was it this year? I was watching nodes, and there was a frost in the vineyards that I was watching,
Right.
and it killed
Right.
a lot of the nodes, and it just so happened
Right.
they had not trimmed the nodes,
right,
and some of the tertiary
right.
growth was still okay.
Because it comes out later,
Yeah.
after the frost, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's another decision. You see, is when, if you're going to take off 2 of 3, when are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Uh,
So how do you determine that?
The old wisdom around here that you may have heard before is you're safe from frost after Mother's Day. But by then, there's a price for everything. You weigh that against the kind of year it is, because by Mother's Day, your plant's already blown a whole lot of really good energy into growing 3 shoots out of 1 node.
Yeah.
Do you want your plant to expend that energy? It's cash flow. I mean, in the plant's life, it's what it has to give.
Yeah.
So how are you, as the farmer, winemaker, going to make decisions on that stuff? I mean, everybody has a different approach, but I like to do it early, and we'll take our frost loss.
Early, like
like late April.
late April.
Yeah, is early, because they will generally start to bud out in maybe the first week of April. So give them 2 to 3 weeks. And by then, the little shoot is just about long enough, so it's pretty easy for the guys to see if there's 3, and then they can just, rub them off, and they're still supple, they're still soft.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but okay, those are all decisions. I mean, timing and all of that weigh into what goes into those barrels,
Yeah.
And that is the role, the hand of man. I mean, that's where we have a role. In influencing, this whole process that is the Mother Nature's process. But in the biodynamic view, we're Mother Nature's children. We're not standing back and somehow divorced or detached from all of that. No, we're right in there.
Yeah.
Part of it.
Yeah. So what has, the vineyard or Pinot, either one, taught you about life?
Oh man, that's a huge question.
I might as well get the easy ones out of the way. We'll get to the tough ones.
Oh, geez. Well, I mean,
You've been doing it now since 1990.
Right.
So what, like 17 years?
Yeah. A lot. I mean, it's taught me a lot. I mean, I look at the world differently, really differently than I used to.
How so?
Well, I am, thankfully, I think, because I've been living here all this time, in the middle of the vineyard and working with the vines and the wines, I've become a lot more tuned to the seasons, to the cycles, to natural cycles. I think a lot.
Natural cycles
of nature, of the moon, of the rainfall, of all those things. I love that, actually. It kind of I often think it sort of takes me back to my childhood in a lot of ways.
In what way? I'm not sure I'm following.
Well, I grew up. I was a nature boy. I grew up out in a woods by the Willamette River, and that's where I spent all my days that I could. And then I got away from that, and I became more of an adult, creature of the world, the modern city, etc. But I really feel that in a lot of ways this brings me back. This whole pursuit brings me back to a lot of things I was sensitive to as a kid.
Yeah. And
I like that. I mean, I don't know. I just am very content. I'm really pleased that really never, as I was growing up and started to think about careers and what I wanted to do with my life and stuff, I never imagined that I would actually be living off the land, which was something that we sort of idealized about, when I was in college. But indeed, we do, and not just me, but a number of us here are living off the land in that way. And when you do, I think you can probably appreciate that. You develop a whole new perception, I think, of what's going on with the land and what it may deliver you or what it may not deliver you from one season to the next, from one year to the next. So,
what about either emotionally or when you're doing farming? I mean, there's times when things don't go right.
Right.
And like there's different ways of coping with that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for, like things that you've learned about, coping with those cycles, with those seasons that, especially here are so, can be so unpredictable.
Yeah. Well, I think because you always get thrown curveballs by Mother Nature, you begin to love it.
You love it.
Well, you have to. You don't have any choice. I mean, you
love
gotta.
It or leave it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta live with it. And so it can be the rolling deck. It can be real challenging. I mean, 2004, for example, was our smallest harvest. We went after a couple of years, 3-4 years of producing over 3,000 cases, 3,400 cases of wine. All of a sudden, in 2004. We produced like 1,550 cases of wine off of this acreage, because there was cold weather in May and warm weather in April, and the plants got turned around, and they said, I mean, just natural Mother Nature things,
Yeah.
She threw us the big spitball, and so you got to deal with that, and we did. Thank goodness, we're just now but 2 years. And 2005 was not a whole lot better in terms of productivity. 2006, we had grapes dropping out of the heaven status here. I mean, it was great, And 2007 again was a nice year. So we're just now. It's actually 3 years, I guess, coming out of that dip in our revenue, our cash flow, our earnings, and so you gotta be prepared for that stuff.
Well, you said that when you're a journalist, it's like you're given one set of challenges,
Mm-hmm.
and you learn to cope with those in one way. Especially like you're in a city and you're dealing with city people and there's kind of tends to be a different kind of a mentality. It seems like I'm making generalizations.
Yeah.
You come out here.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like a different attitude. So I'm looking at, it's like, say 25 years ago, how would you have coped with 2004?
Ooh, that I'm not sure I have an answer for. That's so hypothetical. I'm not sure. But I would say this, I say this to people and they don't really believe me, I think, but I do believe this is true. You've kind of hit a nail there on why it isn't really so different. I mean, what I do now and what I did then. In that it was all about adversity when I was working in journalism. It was about being launched off on an airplane to some country where I had never been before, where I spoke not a word of the local language, and get a story out the next night. Mm-hmm. It was all about adversity and about having to really think, your way through solutions to problems and get them done. That's what I do here. That's not so different. In these, some years there's not so much adversity. Thank you. But in 2004, 2005, and 2006, that's what we've been doing,
And so when you came out here, you had to learn the language of the vineyard.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's... Who's that?
Like some kind of little, it's either a little, you have like rats or mice, or it's a...
I don't think there's any rats. It might be a... Or is it a dog? Outside.
Or it's a ground, do you have ground squirrels here?
Yeah. God, now it's over. Frustrating. Can I just...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Take a break here.
Uh-huh.
Hello, Steph.
Sure I'm recording. Okay. How much did you sell your first bottle of wine for?
$16.
$16.
I think. Or was it 18? Maybe it was 18. I think 18.
And what was it? Is it Pinot Noir?
Pinot Noir. Yeah.
Do you remember who bought it?
No. Actually, I don't.
So it was a third party. It wasn't somebody like.
Right. Yeah. No. It was.
Wife's
It was.
mom or something.
No. It was. I think it was to one of the retail shops, if I remember. Yeah.
And that was what year was that?
19. It was a 1993 vintage. So it was the summer of 1994.